Hello everyone, this is part 40 of What If Naruto was in Anbu at 6, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. 3 ninja and a single dog rushed across the dense forest of fire country, weaving between branches and leaves in all haste. Even as the forest began to thin away along the border, they only moved faster, as fast as their legs could carry them. Pakken panted, almost wheezing as he kept pace with the 3. The trail's going cold. I can barely catch it anymore, Kakashi. Damn it. The copy ninja growled through masked teeth before speeding his pace, momentarily gaining some distance between himself and the other 3. Running faster isn't gonna help, Yoshihiro said, with his hammer and armor. Temari was amazed the man wasn't half-s from exhaustion with so much weight on him. You got a better suggestion? Kakashi shot back, throwing a glare over his shoulder before turning his eyes forward again. Because unless you can find us a way to fly, this is all we got, Yoshihiro. Temari's legs ground to a halt at that sentence, stopping on a tree at a crouch. Fly, she said. Kakashi and Yoshihiro didn't notice her sudden pause, and continued running, gaining several yards before she called out to them. Kakashi, where's the nearest armory or base for your Konoha ninja? The copy nin stopped, stumbling with the sudden maneuver. What the hell for? We have no time. If one of those armories of confiscated weapons, or a village with a blacksmith has some battle fans, I can fly us there, we'll be much faster. We may even catch up before they get wherever they're going. Kakashi and Yoshihiro shared a look before the former Tsuchikage glanced around their environment, catching sight of a bright purple flower, Callistemon citrinus, he said. They only grow along the northern border of Fire Country, near Sendrio Valley. Quote. Kakashi recounted every known village to the north, discarding those with armories and blacksmiths too small to have anything as exotic as a battle fan. Finally, one came to mind. We head east, Pakken, keep following the trail as best you can, I'll hone in on your chakra signature on our way back. The dog nodded, taking to the trees once again before the 3 ninja rushed off towards the village. Sasori's massive bulk lumbered through the foliage, his great mass scarcely making a sound, with the cage of Suna flung over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, a 3-point seal keeping him unconscious and his power at bay. The sun was just beginning to descend now from its apex point in the sky, and though his physical body required no rest, every mind needed sleep, and he had not slept for 3 days already, doing his best to escape the virtual cauldron of spies and scouts that were the elemental territories. Only now was he approaching the northwestern border of Konoha, where he would then be able to move northeast, towards the main Akatsuki base of operations, where the sealing processes could begin. Still, first he needed rest. Throwing Gaara off of his shoulder, he watched the Kazekage down on the floor, giving his head a good thunk on a thin root which stuck out from the ground. The former Suna ninja glanced around before he quickly, but subtly see away some of the surrounding vegetation, blanketing him in the most natural-looking bush he could create and hold together with chakra strings before Sasori himself moved off to some nearby rock formations, compacting his body and folding it in on itself to keep it hidden. And to finish, cast a minor genjutsu over his compacted body. It was unlikely that anyone would find them, but it always paid to be prepared. It was with a stammer that the guard spoke to none other than Hatake Kakashi as the one-eyed copy ninja leaned over him. BBU, but sir, I can't leave you into the confiscated weapons room without proper authorizer. Kakashi's hand lashed out, gripping the boy that was probably little over a decade younger than him, by his collar, lifting him several inches into the air as he brought the stammering youth close to his masked face. I am the second lieutenant of the entire army. I am the proper authorization. Now give me those damn keys. She knew that there was something wrong. That something had happened. She'd been feeling this way for days now, traveling a steady path northward, taking the roads that lead to the villages around Konoha. Daring not to take through the heavily patrolled and guarded forests towards the south, choosing instead to circle around the ominous village of Konoha, towards Iwa's border, and then doubling south towards Suna, where, last she knew, their forces held more sway over the borderlands. Her caution was only a vague measure of safety, she knew. It was a dangerous teetering balance between speed and safety she needed to pull off. If she remained idle in any one place too long, the chances that someone would recognize her as the renowned Angel of Suna increased exponentially. As it was, the roads were on constant alert, checkpoints and in-between markers, pronounced by lone guards that in and out of the wilderness like lions stalking the herd of zebras for the next K. But despite the enemies that encircled her, surrounding and threatening to drown her amidst their searching gazes and ready weapon hands, they were merely a distant second concern to her mind. The feeling had come 2 days ago, a crushing, agonizing pressure in her sea that threatened to sap the strength right out of her limbs, while the seal drawn across her abdomen seared red hot, nearly giving her away entirely as the searing heat began to permeate the air with the smell of burning F. Finally, as quick as it had come, the feeling had left, simply vanished as if never there, not even the lingering effects of pain remained with her. And she knew, right then, that something had happened to Naruto, something had gone horribly wrong for him, or horribly right. It was with a long-forgotten anxiety and restlessness that she felt torn, hesitating between moving on with her original plan to evade the Konoha ninja within their own territory, or seeking out her brother. As she marched through the streets of a small village market, of which she had not even bothered to note the name of, she grabbed several fruits and pieces of food for herself, pilfering extras and using pickpocketed money to pay for those she wished to seem legitimate over. It was the sudden breeze and shift in the air that she reflexively drew her eyes upwards, finding a metal fan, soaring high into the air, a fan that held 3 passengers on it, 2 of which, her sharpened gaze recognized instantly. The first, was the man whom had, by proxy of their fight, granted her, her Hitaki Kakashi Junin of Konohagakure, also known as Sharingan no Kakashi, the copycat ninja, said to have mastered over 1,000 jutsu. The supposed second lieutenant in the Konoha ninja hierarchy, the first lieutenant being Jiraiya of the Densetsu Sannin. A large man in purple armor she didn't recognize, but it wasn't him who caught her eye, even though he was the most imposing. It was Temari. Or, at the very least, it seemed like her. She wore only simple white clothing, a stark contrast to the elaborate kimono she had been wearing on the ship when she had seen her for the first time, offered up like some princess, flattering her with gifts and such, before she was K. No, not K. Hinata had jumped after her, tried to save her. The others had been caught in Liang's genjutsu, but she'd expected such trickery from him. And so he wasn't able to keep it from her. Had she succeeded? She had to have succeeded. The evidence was flying away from her right now, carried upwards by an artificial breeze brought on by chakra. Temari was said to have used battle fans in a similar manner. The blonde hair was exactly the same, and though she couldn't really judge accurately enough from the distance, the woman's size appeared to be the same as well. This was too many coincidences to ignore, to outright deny that this woman could be Temari. But if she was indeed Temari, then what was she doing with, presumably 2 Konoha ninja, and not, apparently, as their prisoner? Had she betrayed Suna, her brother, a victim of Stockholm Syndrome? Was she under some kind of duress where they were forcing her to do this? Did it have something to do with Naruto? Something to do with this apprehension? This feeling? Before she could even determine when it had happened, her legs moved of their own volition, and her arms dropped the thick paper bag of groceries before she took to the alleys, sifting through the shadows before she took to her pursuit, following without a care to who might see, to who may recognize her. She would find her answers. A cold draft within a hollowed-out chunk of ice sent a chill through Conan's feet, her warm breath creating a thin veil of fog as it met the cold air outside her body. Chains rattled and clinked loudly as their heavy, slinking beams were dragged across the wooden dais. Each link was nearly as wide as a human hand, thick, weighing several pounds alone, as though they were made for ships rather than the purpose they were now putting them into use for. They scraped and groaned, almost as they finally came to a halt next to the prone body of their captured prey. Prey. It was not a word many would associate with this man, this creature, the one that had brought the world to its knees, stressing the civilization of the ninja to a breaking point, and very nearly shattering it. No. This one was not prey, he was still every bit the predator in this game. Only a predator that had been subdued, just barely at that. Many of the shinobi and kunoichi here recognized this, and were hesitant to approach, despite the fact that he had yet to move since their commanders had brought him here, despite the seals that still glowed red-hot over his skin shining like ethereal tattoos, making his appearance all the more demonic. Despite their fear, they still looked upon the creature with scorn and malice, veiled only by the rapidly thinning blanket of self-preservation instincts. Victims all of them. They'd been left homeless, penniless, orphans. This was the fallout of his war, the refugees that survived and were left in his wake. They all ran, and in them, Pain had seen the potential. A way to create his own private army for the war that was to come. Many would within the first engagement. For many of them were weak, barely tunen, starting too late in life in training for even men like Kisame, Itachi or Sasori to do much. But they would fight. They would fight like fanatics, firm in the belief that the god, Pain, could overcome their nightmare. The Devil King of Konoha. In a way, he himself had given them the tools for his downfall. No one cared for these people, no one noticed their absence or deduced that they hadn't already been And so Pain had taken them in, drew them to him like the desperate masses that they were, gave them purpose, used them to create this secluded fortress, used them to scout, to blend with the crowd, to seek out information, to watch their targets. All waiting for the opportune moment. And finally, that moment had come. And once they had this Bayu, him more than any other, their plans could advance. Even if Gaara and Yugito had not been captured just yet, it would not matter. He was their main threat, their main target. The man at the head of the world. Losing him would drive it right back into chaos. He was the strongest chain link that held this fragile alliance together, and yet he was also their one major shatter point. The shackles at the end of the chains, forged from thick, tempered steel, were clamped and nailed shut unto his wrists and ankles. Conan stood upon the edge of the dais, on the lip of the stairs that led up to it. She looked towards his unmoving form, covered in seals, watching as the others pulled away, backing quietly as she nodded to the men off to the side, which quickly began to heave down a long lever, lowering it until it fell into place with a deafening clank, which rang through the hollowed-out room. Shifting cogs and gears moved silently, unseen within the walls of this place, raising the chains, higher and higher, until the scourge of the ninja world was lifted over the platform, one chain binding his hands together while two others held his hands apart, crucifying him as the massive links of metal were pulled taut. Though of weapons, he was still draped in that flaming red cloak, unconscious. Conan could admit that it was a strange sight. An odd mixture of the strangely beautiful with the terrifying as he hung there, amidst the pearly white ice that formed the roof and walls, a stark difference in colors. The other four were gone, left the moment he was secure within the fortress, neither wanting to be in his presence any more than necessary nor having the time to spare, needing to begin their preparations in order to commence the sealing process before Sasori arrived with the Kazekage. The plan had been simple, but effective in nature, as everything Pain did. Though they had been uncertain as to his whereabouts, news over Jiraiya's departure had hinted to the Kyuubi's location, and so, they had struck, hoping that Jiraiya would return with the greatest and most essential of the tailed beasts. At the same time, they would strike out towards Suna with Sasori, forging the seal of the Yuki ninja. Though the Nibi was a priority, Gaara was the main target, along with Zhuge Liang as a close second. Striking at all three great leaders, they hoped to confuse and spread the two opposing factions around in a mad dash to find them. Both sides would suspect each other, and war would spread across the borderlands like wildfire, brutal and uncontrolled. The entire situation would delve into chaos, causing a smokescreen great enough so that they may move and continue their plans unseen. Thankfully, Naruto had coincidentally arrived the same day Pain was scheduled to strike at Gaara. A rare fortune for them. Since their assault team had the advantage of flight, they had arrived first. Sasori was a day and a half or so away still. His lesser speed meant that he was more vulnerable to discovery, which is why Pain and his other realms were now skittering across the land, raiding towns and striking at random patrols on both sides, leaving survivors to report back on the sightings and encounters, thus giving the enemy false leads to chase and waste time with. A chill wind swept through the glittering halls, making the blue-haired paper ninja shiver, a chill racing up her spine before she turned and descended from the wooden dais, marching forward through the snow-crusted wood that made up the floor to begin her own preparations away from this chamber. In less than half a day the seals would be in place, and the man that had sought to break the world would be soon after. The void of his mind was filled with only an inky blackness. His body, or what he perceived to be his body, floated within it, leaving him weightless, numb. He remembered what happened to him, his last memories battling against the Akatsuki. Sealed here, in this empty, dark place he was off from the world, from all known physical sensation. Neither sound nor light could ell this veil. All but one. It was slow, rhythmic, like a low thrumming sound, like the faint beats of deep, far away drums. Growing louder and louder. It was as alien as it was familiar to him, and on some level he knew what this was. Who approached him now? He wasn't sure if she was close, or far, but he knew she was coming. Have you come to watch me? X5. Black-cloaked Newtonin stood upon the wooden platform of the dais, watching as the individuals around them worked meticulously, carefully. Drawing the runic seals throughout the expanse of wood, trailing the black seals up the lengths of the massive chains that held their prisoner above them. The ninjas drawing the seals finally reached him, spreading the runes onto his bound hands and arms, interlocking them with those already drawn onto him when Conan captured the cage of Konoha. It was with slow deliberate calmness that Conan took this all in, everything seemed to be coming to a close. The pieces falling into place as per Payne's designs. They were close now, so very very close. She looked to the other four, the orders unspoken but clear as they all moved to their respective locations onto the 5-pentacle star seal, molding their chakra and channeling it into the runic marks, making them glow with faint purple light. The ice along the far wall cracked away as the glowing seals reached it, layer after layer of cool, frozen water vanishing to reveal the gaping maw of a statue with 9 eyes. Conan placed her hands into a seal, beginning to channel her own chakra through the mediums that were the runes at their feet. Pakan, what are you doing? Kakashi spoke, with the harsh bite of anger lacing his voice. You're taking us in circles. It's not my fault, the dog cried, annoyed as he raised his snout higher into the air and back down over the edge of the battle fan. The chakra's feel and scent is somewhere nearby. There's nothing here, the copycat yelled, his anger growing with the increasingly desperate situation. Do you think I'm blind? The dog yelled back with an angry snarl. He didn't work well under pressure. You two do realize that I can't keep going around in circles like this forever. Temari said, quickly growing annoyed with the voices growing louder and louder behind her. Kakashi fought the urge to tell her to shut up and let him think. Fact of the matter was, with this fan, they needed her cooperative, pissing her off even more would only hamper the situation and make finding Naruto all the harder. How could the chakra scent be around here if he's not? Is there any way they could have left something behind? Something to confuse us? No, Pakan said with a shake of his stubby head. The chakra signature is unique to every individual, maybe with a clone or something, but from what you told me Naruto was in no condition to make a clone and he wouldn't have made one to hamper our finding him. Kakashi suddenly straightened, Sharingan scanning the forest canopy below, the veil of shadows and greenery before he quickly leapt over the edge of the fan, startling Temari, and nearly toppling Yoshihiro as the Kanoiki momentarily lost balance on the fan with the sudden lack of weight. Akina watched from below the tree line breathing heavily, sweat marring her forehead from the exertion it took to keep up with the flying ninja. Many times she would have lost sight of them if not for their frequent pauses to stay on some kind of trail. At least that's what she discerned from the small bits and pieces of conversation she could hear from this distance. As it was, if they continued the current course, the trees would soon thin away into nothingness, and whatever stealth she had would be gone. Already the normally rich green of Konoha's oak forests were beginning to give way to scarce snow-licked pine trees. Only a mile or so left before they reached the frozen wastes of the Northland, and further out into the great ice lake, a mass of water that was perpetually frozen even during the summer. She wasn't sure what she would do at that point, but she needed to follow for as long as possible. Maybe she would even go as far to expose herself. But she was getting too far ahead of her own actions. She would cross that bridge when she got to it. It was a confusing thing. This urge that she had, this compulsion. She knew somehow that he, Naruto, was in some sort of trouble. And though she knew that the past interactions hardly prompted her to help, she couldn't, for the life of her, turn back around and leave him to this fate. It was something that she simply wouldn't do. She didn't know why. She held no illusions of who he was, what he had done, all those he had how many more he would She did not hope that by helping him they would reach some kind of friendly truce, that this would be the beginning of an amicable relationship, or at least tolerable one. She knew very well that he may very well her when he saw her. But there was something here, Something wrong, something that pulled her to the north, something that tugged at this compulsion, this urge. Maybe it was because they were twins, maybe it was because they shared the same bayou, maybe it was simply because the fates were fickle and cruel things that chose them, these two siblings to play games with. Maybe it was because she was well and truly insane by this point. She didn't know. And her lack of knowledge did nothing to deter her from her current course of action. They were arguing now. She could hear their voices, loud and agitated. She closed her eyes, tried to listen, but it was difficult. A low thrum at the back of her mind, of which she became aware of then, was making it all the more difficult to concentrate on what was being said. Do you, emind. I ant keep is favor. What were they saying? Were they lost? Did they even know where they were going? What they were looking for? How could out air? Why was it so difficult to hear them? This pressure on the back of her mind, what the hell was going on? What was wrong with her? The sound of broken twigs and rustling leaves alerted her just a little too late as Kakashi suddenly descended from the forest canopy, fist into the side of her face, sending the Jinchuriki plummeting down to the earth below, Kakashi following a moment later as he leapt off the tree. She landed with a thud. Rolling to the side, she swiveled up onto her feet just as he landed with a forward roll. He drew a kunai, giving her nary a moment to catch his wrist before she attempted to deliver a punch to his face, only to have her own wrist caught in his hand. She looked into his eyes then, the multicolored irises widening in surprise as a choked gasp escaped his lips. You. The statement was simple, but just as quickly as the shock had come, it passed and his eyes narrowed into dangerous S. Shoving her hands down, he released the kunai in his right fist before he moved faster than what she could readily comprehend, seeking to strike at key nerve points along her body. She dodged, awkwardly, as best she could, but was still hit by several of the strikes. Retaliating with her foot, she caught the copy ninja in the face, sending the masked Konoha ninja stumble backwards, almost requiring the use of his hands to avoid falling. She straightened, a slight limp in her now slack leg. She moved to take up her fighting stance when a massive hammer was suddenly drawn in front of her, the shaft of its metal grip pressing against her T as it was pulled back, shoving her against the unyielding surface of Yoshihiro's armor as he pulled back on the hammer almost to the point of suffocation as it pressed into her T. A rustle of snapping branches and leaves alerted her to their third and fourth arrival, with Temari folding the fan with practiced ease before landing at a crouch, the dog at her side. The Jinchuriki, face growing red from the pressure on her end, swallowed thickly as she watched Kakashi straighten and Temari come in closer. Pakken trotted forward, sniffing deeply and his eyes narrowing suspiciously. Kakashi, what is this? The canine questioned. The masked ninja's features visibly tightened beneath his mask, wondering if he should reveal the knowledge that, besides Naruto, only he and Jiraiya knew. To not one, but two other foreign ninja. In the end he decided that the risk wasn't worth it. What does it look like? An enemy ninja sent to stall us. The summon apparently couldn't take a hint though, sniffing once more before speaking. Her scent. It's almost the same as his, and the chakra feels the same, well, just less potent. She's the reason we've been going in circles. The dog accused. How's that possible? Yoshihiro questioned, struggling for a moment as Akina tried to shove the hammer away from herself with his momentary distraction. After a moment of Kakashi's continued, tense silence, the Tsuchikage looked to the young woman currently pressed against him, squirming in his unyielding grip. Well, since you're not saying anything, how about you, sweetheart, you have something to explain? He questioned, releasing her from his hold before shoving her forward, making her stumble with the jarring motion, rubbing her tea as she coughed a few times to clear her airway. You're looking for him, aren't you? She questioned, coughing several more times before she straightened. Naruto, I mean. Are we that obvious? Yoshihiro drawled sarcastically. Now explain. Before I start thinking you got nothing to say. Why do you? I'm his sister. She interrupted. Yoshihiro reeled as if struck, while Temari's gaze was fixed to this girl's profile, mouth agape and eyes wide. Yoshihiro was the first to recover, glancing at Kakashi's unflinching gaze before narrowing his eyes. You knew. Kakashi's lips curled beneath his mask. What does it matter if I knew? The fact remains that now, because she's here, this whole pursuit has gone to hell. We'll never be able to track him down the trail now with her chakra and scent all over the place. She looked to the copy ninja now, blue eyes wary, aware of how tenuous this temporary ceasefire was between them. What happened? Where did he go? Kakashi's Sharingan spun rapidly in its place as he marched up to her. You tell me. It's awfully convenient that you who's been missing from our reports since the naval battle just happened to show up here. Right on our tail, ruining our only shot of finding him. You either know where he is or you know where the Akatsuki base. The younger blonde woman backed away before straightening, almost physically growing before their eyes to stand equal to Kakashi. I don't know anything. I came because your little takeoff from the village was hardly the most subtle of exits. She looked to Temari for the first time. You were the one that brought the most attention. You're from Suna and you're helping two Konoha ninja. Though she wasn't sure of her hunch, Temari's wince at the accusatory tone was more than enough confirmation. I came, she continued, because of you and I had a feeling, she admitted, almost with a guilty air. You had a feeling? Kakashi questioned incredulously, and the sudden spike of chakra alerted everyone that he was getting very ready to use more violent means to extract the information he sought. She nodded, her own guard coming up as she subtly backed away from the copy ninja, giving her enough room to react just in case. I could sense something was wrong. Yoshihiro, recovering from his shock, sighed and shook his head. Don't bother, she doesn't know anything. Kakashi's eyes snapped towards him, raising his head slightly to stare down on the Kanoiki from the bridge of his nose. Don't tell me you're buying into this innocent the first had a feeling crap. He questioned without turning to face the man. She's been his enemy for the last 10 years. She's the angel of Suna, for Christ's sake. And has been a thorn in our war effort ever since. Now that, the Tsuchikage didn't know, but in his own mind, these facts meant little to nothing at this stage in the game, more circumstance that surrounded her motives. So with a shrug he spoke. Either you're right and she knows something. Which is unlikely due to the fact that she didn't attack us while we were going around in circles, and the fact that she hasn't used the Kitsune's chakra when you attacked her. She let herself be subdued. Both Akina and Kakashi looked to the purple-armored male. How did you? The dogs said your chakra is similar to Naruto's, just less potent. Naruto has the Kyuubi, no way a single humans could feel the same. The Tsuchikage interrupted with a shrug. It's only simple logic that you'd have at least a portion of that chakra in you in order for your chakra to feel like his. There was a pause between them before Yoshihiro continued his previous statement. So either you're right, Kakashi, or she's telling the truth and she does have a feeling. They share a Bayu, so it's not entirely out of question. So how does that help us? Temari questioned with an air of impatience. Either way we can't track him now, so we're still screwed. Yoshihiro shrugged again, face coiling in something akin to a wince. It's a long shot. A very very long shot. But the most I can suggest right now if you're trying to track him. He said, gesturing to Akina with a jerk of his head. Her. Out of me. Both Kakashi and Akina questioned at the same time. Yoshihiro shrugged. Best thing I can guess. You both share the same Bayu. Just because of that there's a link between you two. Maybe you can follow that link back to its source. She shook her head. The throbbing in her mind returned, stronger now. A pulse, a signal, a call, was he calling her? Was Yoshihiro right? She opened her eyes, shaking her head to clear the fog and dismiss the thoughts. She spoke, carefully, cautiously. I don't know where he is. But, I just think we should go north. Straight north. Straight north is the great frozen lake that guards Yuki. Nothing but 300 miles of desolate wasteland. There's nothing out there. You got a better suggestion? Yoshihiro stated before looking to Temari. Looking to Akina he spoke. I assume you're coming. The young Jinchuriki hesitated for a moment, pausing as she considered the dangers of going with these people. But, then again, this is what she had wanted, was it not? It was with visible trepidation that she slowly nodded. Looking to Temari he jerked his head to indicate he was speaking to her. You got room for one more on that fan? Temari looked hesitant and eventually shook her head. No. There's too much weight. Unfurling a scroll from his pack, Yoshihiro quickly sealed away his warhammer, and then proceeded to do the same with his shoulder and knee pauldrons, leaving him with nothing but his Kuri and Shin guards. That cover it? He questioned. Temari bit her lower lip, frowning worriedly before she gave a single, hesitant nod. I think I should be able to get us off the ground with a strong enough wind. If the wind though, you may have to loose more of your armor. Yoshihiro nodded, watching as Temari once again leapt up through the trees, unfurling her fan and taking to the skies. Akina looked to the two men, clearly unsure of turning her back to them before she too turned resolutely, and leapt through the trees to join the Sabaku. Pakken, Kakashi and Yoshihiro remained on ground level. I don't like this, the dog piped up. Turning his still spinning Sharingan onto the Tsuchikage, the copy nin spoke. You do realize that if you're wrong this is a trap. You didn't protest, he said with a shrug. So you realize that, trap or no, we have no choice now. If we really do want to find Naruto. Kakashi said nothing before he dispelled Pakken, and followed the two females, Yoshihiro soon on his heels. It was a jarring thud of a body impacting a icy grit-covered wood that brought Conan's gaze over her shoulder, finding none other than Sasori standing along the edge of the dais, the unconscious, limp body of the Kazekage laying at his feet. Conan turned her eyes back to their still hanging prisoner, returning her mind to the task at hand, listening as Sasori began shuffling back down the stairs towards his quarters. Not having a physical body to produce the normal amounts of chakra, he had a very small amount. For chakra strings, which took next to nothing with his precise control, his limited amount was not normally a problem, but for extracting and sealing Bayu, the puppeteer was most useless. The runes beneath their feet began to pulse, the faint purple haze of chakra washing over everyone within the elevated plateau. Itachi, Kisame, Deodara and Toby all maintained their stiff posture, each holding their own handseal as more and more of their chakra seeped into the massive written symbol at their feet. The purple glow of the runes was halfway up the chains now, gaining more and more ground, coming steadily closer towards the Devil King. The seal was smoking now, the deep purple glow making the distortions of air seem more like a poisonous miasma than simple steam and heat. Soon. It will all be over soon. Pick up the pace people, we don't have time to waste here. Kankuro yelled at the lagging Anbu behind him, the whirring engines which powered the wheels along the bottom of his suit's feet propelling him forward, throwing out snow and ice behind him as he used his chakra to power his motor through the increasingly thickening blanket of white. They had been running for days on end, not even stopping to eat, and barely pausing for 5 hours worth of sleep. The Anbu were tired, as could be seen by their increasingly faltering steps. Even Yugito was beginning to feel the strain. Unlike the Anbu, however, she was not afraid of facing down the obviously emotionally driven Kankuro. Picking up her pace, the Nibi Jinchuriki came to a halt in front of the puppeteer, bringing his wheels to a screeching halt as his chakra instinctively triggered the air brakes. What the hell are you doing? The Sabaku male yelled, voice emerging as a deafening boom from within his suit. She stared up into the T-shaped opening that was the suit's visor. We're stopping here. We have no. Look at your men. The Kumo Kanoiki stated with a jerk of her head, bringing Kankuro's massive bulk to swivel around and look at the dozen or so Anbu that stood behind him. They were all breathing heavy, and though some remained firmly upright, several more were leaning on their knees for support. Even if we catch up, we have no idea how many enemies there are, or what their skills they have. If we show up tired coupled with these two disadvantages, we may as well ess our own tea. The blonde continued calmly. We need to rest, at least for 4 hours. Then we can continue. Every second we spend here is a second lost. A second where they're gaining more and more distance from us. We wait here and Gaara could ess. We get there like this and Gaara will ess. The Nibi Jinchuriki stated. Kankuro paused, as though weighing the statements and the facts in his own mind. He nervously licked his lip within his suit, gnawing on his lower lip with uncertainty. 3-hour rest. The puppeteer said. No more. Yugito nodded, watching as all the Anbu simultaneously sat down to rest, with one lighting a small fire, using some dry tinder they had taken from the forests as it became clear they would be moving north towards the frozen wastes on the outskirts of the Great Ice Lake. Yugito watched as Kankuro went off to the side, breathing a sigh before she allowed her mind to wander, eyes clouding over in uncertainty before they rose to the bleak, grayish sky. She had seen Zhu Liang before they left. Seen his condition. He looked ill, deathly so, and the smell of poison hung thick in the air. Had he made it? Was he even able to get to sooner after she had left? Would it have made a difference? She didn't know, and she shook her head to banish these thoughts. They would do nothing but distract her on this mission. So, stepping closer to the flames, she too sat down, joining the Anbu, and watching as they continued to check and recheck the gear, with the few who knew medical jutsu channeling their chakra to soothe their muscles and ingesting several energy bars and supplements for additional proteins and energy. Something's wrong, Akina said, a hand pressed against her forehead, her face altered between flushed and pale sporadically, the cold of the high allude winds whipping at her face like scratching claws. That's obvious, Yoshihiro said, hands held out in front of him, ready to catch the younger woman if she keeled over. Which seemed to be a rather distinct possibility judging by the fact that she looked as though she was about to throw up for some reason. Kakashi stood at the fan's edge, on the other side of Yoshihiro, also positioning himself to catch the swaying girl if she fell. Temari looked occasionally over her shoulder back at him, but kept her focus mainly on keeping the fan steady at the wake of the rapidly shifting winds. Updrafts and downdrafts beat against them, rocking the surface of the fan like a ship in a storm. The sister of the Demon King was sweating, shivering with the cold, the hand at her head doing little to help fully steady her. Yoshihiro looked to the copy ninja. You got anything, Kakashi? Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan, the red iris, watching with increasing trepidation as he watched the faint red of Kyuubi's chakra pulse around her now, but it was strange, distorted, unfocused, as though someone were trying to release water from a bent faucet. It shuddered and dissolved to nothing shortly before it left its seal. What was happening to her? When she had fought him at Suna, the Kyuubi chakra was controlled, focused, almost harmonious with her system. The woman's hands suddenly flew to her stomach, and she doubled over, knees losing their strength afterwards, eyes rolling to the back of her head, barely giving Yoshihiro and Kakashi enough time to catch her before she fell over the edge. The two men pulled her safely into the fan's surface. What the hell is wrong with her? Temari yelled over her shoulder once again. Neither of the two men answered, holding the woman firmly in place as she began to convulse, going into something akin to shock. Kakashi, however, noticed something. The chakra, it thinned out in one particular direction, ending at a point, as though it were reaching out to something. Temari, change direction 30 degrees to the left. The copy ninja called out to the blonde woman. We're moving out. Kankuro barked, marching up to the Anbu, watching as they all shuffled to their feet, putting out the fire by heaping snow onto it, smothering the flames while others picked up their equipment and camping gear. He began to march ahead, revving up the engines in the suit's calves, bringing the wheels to life. The thick legs of the suit plowed their way through the snow, allowing passage for the Anbu behind him to be easier. He knew he was pushing them, and he knew Yugito was right when she stopped him, and he knew that the men definitely needed more rest. But she just didn't understand. This was Gaara. He'd already lost his mother, his father, his sister. He was not going to lose his brother as well. Not here, not like this. And he didn't care if he had to run every Anbu and the whole of Suna to the ground to save him. Now, Conan roared out, spreading her hands wide apart, a burst of chakra leaving her in a single, strong pulse, followed shortly by the other four conducting the sealing. Above them, Naruto awoke with a groan, dull, harzed blue eyes peering from recently closed lids. Reaching the realm of consciousness in time for the pain to hit him. The purple glow of the seal spread further, moving across his body, shifting from purple to red as the demonic chakra was forcefully extracted from him. The searing burning agony left him reeling, hands clenching into tight fists, muscles coiling and tensing beneath his skin. He growled low in his tea, eyes shifting from blue, to red, to purple, and back to blue. The red chakra trailed down the chains, overtaking the deep purple as it did, soon spreading throughout the entire seal. The appearance of miasma, be a way into a hellish hue of red, as though they were standing in the pits of hell itself. The seals bubbled, and the ice around them, now melting, cracked and buckled. The red demon energy rose, coalescing into a single mass before them all. Throughout the process, Naruto's muscles wound themselves tighter and tighter, pulling the massive chains taut as they held him fast, the inner burn spreading to engulf every fiber of his body. Everything burned as though he were lit aflame, and the strain of his tense muscles was so great it was physically painful in and of itself. The chakra massed into a hazy ball, before it began easing its way to the great open maw of the statue. A hollow howl echoed through the carved-out ice cave, a ghastly that spread through their sea and down to their knees. Naruto's body began to convulse, and shudder, violent spasms through his body. So violent he dislocated one shoulder with the abrupt, physical force alone, his eyes rolling upwards, reddish chakra seeping from his tear ducts and mouth towards the great statue. As the last of the chakra was entering the statue's wide mouth, Naruto's body tensed one final time, fists clenching before he fell completely still. Still several miles away, a blonde Kanoiki woke with a curdling scream. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.